Hey guys, what's going on? Thanks for coming to this session that I'm calling Stop Overthinking. Also called How Overthinking is Slowly Killing You. Okay, you don't need a plan Z. I'm wearing my Cactus Warriors t-shirt today, and this is something that a lot of you know that I do. We race several times per year. We go down to Baja and we race motorcycles. And a huge part of my job, or actually all volunteers, as the crew chief for the world's greatest race team, Cactus Warriors, is to do all of the planning for the race, okay? So this is a big, non-inclusive list of some of the things that I'm responsible planning, okay? I put together a team budget for every race, and I collect money from the team members. I outline the race plan, including determining how to break the race up into sections, deciding who should race each section, coordinating the movement of 4 to 7 crew vehicles, 3 to 6 riders, and maybe 9 to 12 crew members across literally several hundred miles of Baja Desert. And in some of our races, we go 1,200 miles in one day. I coordinate the trailers and the trucks and all the motorcycles and all the ways that we transport the motorcycles and the gear and the people to the race. I coordinate the travel schedules for up to 25 people for each race to ensure that everyone makes it to their assignments on time, making sure that we move the vehicles appropriately, etc. I design, I order, and I distribute hundreds of t-shirts, hoodies, and race uniforms. I put together a pre-running plan that allows each of the riders to ride each of their 1 through 3 sections many, many times before the race. I work with a mechanic and the bike builder to make sure that our race bike is properly and legally set up for the race. And I even manage and set up all of the technology for the race, all the GPS units, the satellite communication devices, the GoPro cameras, the drones, the race radios, etc. Okay? I read you that list not to tell you, oh my gosh, about all these things I do, but to show you that in short, there is a lot of planning to do for this race. Oh, and by the way, did I mention that we do this race about 4 times per year, sometimes more? Now, if there's one lesson that I've learned more than any other over the many years that we've been racing is this. Overthinking can ruin everything, okay? Overthinking can take a pretty good plan and turn it into mush in a matter of minutes. Last time we went racing, we had an instance while we were discussing the race plan with the team, and one member of this team seemed intent on changing the plan for literally no apparent reason other than it just kind of felt and looked better to him. So this need for him to change it for change's sake led to a couple of hours, essentially, of wasted time and a plan that was essentially the same as it had been in the first place. Now, what also happened is this overthinking created a good amount of animosity toward the teammate that was consumed with overthinking the plan, okay? So that's obviously not the most desired outcome. There's a great quote by General George Patton. He says, "A good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan next week." So what I've come to realize is that a good plan, or let's call it a good enough plan, when well executed, will almost always beat a perfect plan, okay? Overthinking that plan and trying to come up with myriad contingency plans to cover any all possible outcomes is not only frustrating and time-consuming, but in the end, it often does not create a materially better outcome than the original plan, okay? Let me say that again. Overthinking often does not create a materially better outcome than the original plan. So, why do we overthink so much? Okay? While everyone overthinks situations once in a while, some people are plagued with this constant barrage of thoughts all the time. They're chronically overthinking. So chronic overthinkers rehash these conversations they had yesterday. They second guess every decision they make, and they imagine all of these disastrous outcomes all day, every day. So overthinking often involves 2 destructive thought patterns. One is called ruminating, and the other is incessant worrying. Okay, so let's talk about ruminating. Ruminating involves dwelling on the past. Okay, ruminating thoughts may include things like, oh, I shouldn't have said those things at the meeting yesterday. I bet everyone thinks I'm an idiot. Or, I should have stayed at my last job. I would have been happier than I am now. Or my parents didn't teach me how to be confident. My insecurities have always held me back. Those are examples of ruminating, okay? Now, worrying or incessant worrying involves negative, often catastrophic predictions about the future, okay? Thoughts that may include things like, oh man, I'm going to embarrass myself tomorrow when I give that presentation. I know I'm going to forget everything I'm supposed to say. Or everybody else is going to get promoted before me. Or I know we won't ever have enough money to retire. We'll be too sick to work and then we'll run out of money. And we know what this worrying does to our productivity and to our psyches, right? So, fortunately, overthinking is just a habit, and like all habits, overthinking, or should I say your propensity for overthinking, can be overcome with consistent practice and a bit of effort. So, here are 6 ways to stop overthinking and move on to more important matters. Okay? Number 1, be aware. Overthinking can become such a habit that you don't even recognize when you're doing it. So you need to start paying attention to the way you think so that you can become aware of the problem. When you're replaying events in your mind over and over or worrying about things that you can't control, stop, be aware, and acknowledge that your thoughts are not productive. Okay? Thinking is only helpful when it leads to positive action. So number one way to stop overthinking and move on to more important matters is be aware that you're doing it. Number 2, focus on solutions. Dwelling on your problems isn't helpful, but looking for solutions is, okay? If it's something you have some control over, consider how much you can prevent the problem or challenge. Consider how you can prevent the problem or challenge yourself to identify 5 potential solutions, or 3 for that matter. If it's something you have no control over, call it a natural disaster or the economy, etc., think about the strategies that you can use to cope with it. Focus on the things you can control, like your attitude and your effort. So the number 2 way to stop overthinking and move on is to focus on solutions. Number 3, reframe the negatives into positives. Okay, it's easy to get carried away with negative thoughts. So before you determine that calling in sick is going to get you fired or that forgetting one deadline will cause you to become homeless, acknowledge that your thoughts may be exaggeratedly negative. Okay? Remember that your emotions will interfere with your ability to look at situations objectively. So when you're in this spot, take a step back, reframe the negatives into positives. Take a step back and look at the evidence. What evidence do you have that your thoughts are true? What evidence do you have that your thoughts aren't true? Okay? So reframe those negatives into positives, number 3. Number 4, give yourself time limits for reflection. Okay? Stop stewing, I call this. Okay? So stewing on your problems for like long periods of time isn't productive. But brief consideration can be helpful. Okay? Thinking about how you could do things differently or recognizing potential pitfalls to your plan can help you perform better in the future. So incorporate thinking time into your daily schedule, but give yourself time limits. Okay? During that time period, let yourself worry or ruminate or mull over whatever you want. But when your time's up, move on. And when you start overthinking things outside of your scheduled thinking time, I want you to just remind yourself that you're going to need to wait until your next thinking time to address those issues in your mind. I use a process called morning pages to do this in journal form. We've talked about this before, but essentially each day I sit down with a pen and my journal and I write nonstop until I filled 3 handwritten pages with all my thoughts, all my fears, and all my anxieties. And when I'm done, I simply close my journal. Okay, I give myself those 3 pages to get it all out, and then I've got to move on. So that's number 4 of the ways to stop overthinking and move on. Give yourself time limits for reflection. Number 5 is to be present, okay? It's impossible to rehash yesterday or worry about tomorrow when you're living right now. Mindfulness is going to help you become more aware of the here and now. So just like any other skill, mindfulness takes practice, but over time it can decrease your overthinking. There's classes, books, apps, courses, videos, etc. to help you learn mindfulness skills. But essentially a big piece of that is understanding that what's most important is what's here and now in the present. So that's number 5 way to stop overthinking, be present. And the 6th and final way to stop overthinking and move on to the things that are really important is to switch it up, okay? Number 6, switch it up. Simply telling yourself to stop thinking about something is going to backfire. So the more you try to prevent a thought from entering your brain, the more likely it is to keep popping up over and over again. So what you need to do is change the channel in your brain by changing your activity, okay? Whatever you're currently doing, get up and move, exercise, get up and move over here, engage in a conversation on a completely different subject, or move over here and work on a project that's different and that distracts you and makes you think about something else. Doing something different will put an end to the barrage of your negative thoughts. So that's it, guys. There's 6 ways to stop overthinking and move on to more important matters. Number 1, be aware that you're doing it. Number 2, focus on solutions. Number 3, reframe your negatives into positives. Number 4, give yourself time limits for reflection. Number 5, be present and practice mindfulness. And finally, number 6, switch it up. Do something different to get your brain working different. All right, guys, that's it for this week. I hope you have a wonderful one. Talk to you soon.